How's everyone doing?
Great.
Doing well, doing well. So my name is Josh, here from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been helping people repair, fix their credit for the last 3 years. And today I'm going to talk about the exact formula that you need in terms of structuring your credit report to be able to get approved for a home. And when it comes to the structure, this could apply for anything that you're applying for, but you really want to focus on this formula because most people think that the credit score is the most important thing, but it's about what's inside of your credit report. That's what's most important. So I'm going to talk about the exact data points you need to hit and what you can do to work your way towards hitting those if you're not there as of yet. So when it comes to your credit report, obviously, first thing you need to do is you need to be able to get access to your credit report. There's a bunch of different tools out there that you can use to be able to look at it. And the first thing that you want to look at when it comes to your credit report is the personal information section. So 80% of credit reports have some type of inaccuracies on them. It doesn't even matter if you have, say, like a 750 score, there still might be inaccuracies that you want to make sure that are correct because it's your right under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to make sure everything is matching up. So when I say personal information section, that's your name, that's your address, that's your date of birth. You'd be surprised how many times I've seen credit reports that date of births are wrong, first and last names aren't spelled correctly. And the reason that's the first step that you want to make sure that is correct is because that negative information or that whatever's being listed incorrectly could be associated with a negative account, whether it's a collection, late payments from your credit cards, whatever it may be, that stuff could be affecting you. And if you clean that up as like the first step, it could knock off some of the negative stuff off your report. I've seen it happen. Doesn't happen every time, but for example, I had one client that I worked with, cleaned up the personal information section, and they had like 3 deletions in 60 days, just because the information wasn't correct. So that's the first step. Next I'm going to talk about the exact structure of what data points that you need to hit to be able to get approved for that home or whatever it is that you're going for. So first is you want to make sure that you have a 100% payment history. So if you don't have a 100% payment history, you need to work towards that. So that just basically self-explanatory. It just means that you need to be making all your payments on time. If you have the ability to, I always recommend, making sure that, or just getting on auto pay, just so then that way it's just comes out every single month, or just setting reminders in your phone because just one 30-day late payment on your report could knock your score down like 30 to 80 points just for one 30-day. So you always want to make sure that that's correct. Next is your utilization. So when I say utilization, it's just how much credit you have access to and how much of it you're actually using. So the sweet spot that you want to stay in between, or even when you're going in to apply for that home, you want to stay 10% or below for utilization. So you don't want to use more than 10% of the actual credit that you have access to. Now, when you go to Google, most of the time they're going to say, hey, you want to stay 30% or below. But the sweet spot that's actually going to boost your score up the most as well is 10% or below. After that is derogatory marks. You want to have 0. So derogatory could be late payments, it could be collections, it could be charge-offs. Anything that's just negative reflecting on your credit report is derogatory. So there's a few things that you can do to be able to get some of those things cleaned up. So say if you have a collection account, I always recommend, not just if the collection shows up on your report, I always recommend not, paying it right away. I always recommend, disputing that, and you do that by sending a debt validation letter directly to the collections agency. And the reason I say that is because if they can't provide proof of signature, proof that you actually owe this debt, then they have to remove it from your credit report. So
Run it back one more time. They need to provide
signatures, contracts, anything that just proves that you officially owe that debt.
You said it's a debt validation letter?
Yep. So it's super simple. And if you guys want, if you come up to me, I can, send you an example of a debt validation letter you can send out. So basically just saying, hey, I know there's this debt on my report. I'm not sure if I actually owe this. Can you please prove to me that I owe this debt? So you want to put the proof of burden on them, so then that way, if they come back and they can't provide that proof, under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they have to delete it. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't owe the debt. Doesn't mean you just completely wipe it away. It just means that it's getting removed from your credit report.
What if you've already been paying on the debt and you're like, oh, we owe this debt?
I mean, if you're already paying on it, if you have like some type of agreement with them, depending how much it is, I would just go ahead and just finish paying it off. And also keep in mind, you know, paying a debt still is cleaning up your credit report. So a lot of people just try to avoid, you know, get around different types of loopholes and try to just avoid the debt completely. You know, the collections agencies just want the money. So even if you're just saying, hey, I want to pay this, but the key thing to that is I always would recommend when you agree to pay the debt, get it in writing and make sure they say they're going to remove it from the credit report. Because a lot of people, they pay the debt and it's still going to show up as a negative on your credit report and it's just going to reset the date for the next 7 years to stay on your report. Yep. So super, super important. It's called a pay for delete letter, just saying, hey, I want to agree to pay this. Do you agree? If you agree, please sign this, send it back to me. So then that way you have your proof in case they try to do some funny stuff on the back end and you have the documentation.
But has it been, or anybody can speak to this, has it been the experience that when you call a collector and you say, hey, I want to go ahead and take care of this debt, I want, you know, the pay to delete letter, that they are super willing to do that? I feel like I had that experience one time some while ago, and she wasn't willing to do it. She didn't know, you know, anything about it, and I feel like maybe it was from lack of training, you know, possibly on her part, because clearly it's a thing. So to get ready for the home buying process, I went ahead and, you know, took care of it. I was able to get it removed, but it was a lot of work, you know, on my part, to get it accomplished. So I feel like some of these companies are super shaky about the pay to delete because they know what it is. You know, you're trying to get to your higher goal, but it's like, no, you can just go ahead and pay that and be done.
That's what he's here for too. As a, like, these guys, whenever you, so, because a lot of people don't know how to dispute the stuff themselves or.
No.
Right.
And sometimes you got calling them credit specialists to go ahead and get that, you know, taken off or take care of. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, sometimes they can be difficult. Honestly, even when it comes to calling the credit bureaus or calling anyone, if someone's being difficult, just hang up and call again and get on the phone with someone else.
I mean, I did eventually get it done. I did, but I spent our afternoon, you know, doing that. And I'm just like, I could have been out on the hustle, you know, making my money and being a little smarter. But, you know, I did end up getting it done. But I guess the thing that I'm noticing is a lot of credit specialists are popping up, and we probably all see that, you know, on Facebook. And we like, I don't like to do that type of stuff because I'm feeling like, where is this debt going? It's been following me for 7 years, and now, you know, you pop up and you like, that 139.59 is gonna get you to get, you know, on your credit, and it's gonna get you to this. And then I'm just like, okay, but where does the debt, you know, go? You saying it's gonna take a couple of rounds for it to fall off, but once I get into the house, is it gonna come back? You know, is it really gone? Is it really worth paying whatever it is that they're saying?
Yeah, so when it gets removed, if they reinsert it, that's technically they
Illegal,
can't
right?
do that.
That's illegal. Yeah.
So once it's off the report, they can't reinsert it back on. And if they do, then you can, you know, there's called like reinsertion letters, and you can even take it up higher to like the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and, you know, file a complaint against that for that. Now also keep in mind as well, depending on how much the debt actually is, there's a few things you want to look out for. So say if it's like 5 figures or and above, and if it's within the statute of limitations, so Indiana, I think it's like 5 or 7 years, one of them. If it's a super big debt, I will be wary of trying to just get it removed, because what they could do is send you to court to try to collect that debt. But if it's after the statute of limitations, then they can't come after you, and then you're good to go, and you have a clear mind of getting that stuff removed. Anything 5 figures or below, it's not even like really worth their time to like come after you for that. So that's derogatory marks. You can do that for the disputing process. Now, even to answer your question, or not even your question, your comment about, you know, all the credit specialists coming up, definitely something to look out for in terms of like people saying they can get stuff removed. What I tell my clients, I like to be very like transparent with them in terms of like what that process actually looks like, because it is a process. Every credit report is different. There's no cookie cutter answer on when things can get cleaned up. So say if someone ever comes up to you and be like, hey, I'm going to get your credit report cleaned up in 30 days, everything gone, I will run immediately. Because that means most likely they're going to be, filing some type of police reports and falsifying things, and that's, not right, because it's going to come back on you guys. So, but it is a process. Now, it could take 30 days, it could take 90 days, it could take up to a year. But in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that much long of a time, especially if someone's been messing up the credit for years on end. A year is a good commitment to see the process through, because there's a lot of little different things that you have to do and stay consistent with. That's really the biggest thing. So, see, derogatory mark, 0. All right, next is credit history. So typically, I like to tell my clients they want to shoot towards 7+ years. Now, there's not really much you can do about this. It literally just comes as early as you started building your credit. But 7 years is like a good thing to report on your credit report. Now, one thing that you can do, though, say if you have a family member that has really great credit on their credit card, I would get added as an authorized user. So then that way you adopt their payment history, you adopt their credit limit on your report. And so say, for example, like 5 years ago when I got added as an authorized user on my grandfather's credit report, immediately in about a week, it boosted my score 100 points. I got 20 years of credit history, a $20,000 credit line on my credit report, and it looks good. So that's one thing that you can do. And then the other thing you can do is obviously just start building your credit as soon as possible. Next is the amount of open accounts that you have. So a number that I tell my clients to shoot for, if they're not there yet, is 10 minimum accounts. Now that could just be different credit building tools, that can be credit cards, that could be loans, that can be a secured loan. There's a bunch of different things that you can do to reach that 10 minimum, but that's a good sweet spot to increase your chances of getting approved for something, especially if we go back to payment history, you have 100% payment history on that stuff, you should be good to go.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
For open accounts, so we were talking about student loans earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the situation where I had student loans, and to get prepared for this process, I needed to get one out of federal default.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a small balance, like up under 2,000 or something like that. And she said, if you can pay, go ahead and pay.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and got it, taken care of. But in the grand scheme of things, me taking care of the $2,000 balance, I lost 7 years credit history because that's how long. So what's the toss up or?
So I would say that, obviously you want that 7 years,
Right.
but
Is it, so I guess my question is the 7 years credit history better, or was it better to let the student loan float?
was it showing up as a negative?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just let that go. And even I've had a few clients over the past few weeks. They had their student loans in default, and then they just fell off on the credit report and went back into good standings.
Mm-hmm.
As of recently. So, but yeah, if it was a negative, if you've been building your credit before then as well, that of accounts that are just as long, doesn't matter that much. And it wasn't a big, you said it's $2,000, so it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah. And then lastly, you want to have between 2 to 3 inquiries on your report.
What that mean?
So, say when you go into, say, a car dealership and they pull your credit to check your credit, it'll be like an inquiry on your report. You apply for a credit card. They're just checking your credit to see if you qualify. So inquiries, it's only 10% of your score. So really, the most damage I've seen when it comes to inquiries on people's report is when they apply for a car or something, because the dealerships pull people's credit 30 times. So what I would recommend in terms of inquiries, say if you have a bunch of inquiries, I would definitely challenge those as well to pretty much try to get those removed. It takes about 2 years for them to fall off, but there's a few things that you can do to get those removed on your credit report. One being, you could actually call the credit bureaus directly And I have a script as well, so if you want all these resources, I can send that to you as well. A lot of my clients, they get that stuff removed within like 24 hours. Not everyone can get removed, but I've seen it happen multiple times if you just follow the script. And then you could just challenge those on your credit report as well. So, but that's just like the sweet spot that you want to stay between.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
You said it takes like 2 years for the hard increase to fall off, which is what I know.
Mm-hmm.
But you said that you could get it removed before the 2 years, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
I know that there's just something that I read with the credit report thing, that it takes 2 years before they fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And I always just thought it was 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
that you have to really actually wait. So
Yeah.
it's good to know that you can get it taken off before that.
Yeah, and also I want to clarify this as well. You never want to remove an inquiry that is associated with a open account on your credit report or an account that's in positive standings. You only want to delete inquiries that are associated with things that you did not get approved for. Because I haven't done that to my clients, but I've seen clients do that before, or other people do that before, where they remove an inquiry that had an open account, and then it deleted and wiped away the whole account off the report, and it did more damage than good. So, yep.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanna know this just for my personal knowledge, the bankruptcy
Mhm.
myth of it being reporting, what is it, 7 to 10 years on the credit report. Is that something that can be removed and then you can?
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
before that time?
Yeah, it is. So when it comes to bankruptcies, really the credit bureaus aren't even allowed to report that on your credit report. So like when you go to like challenge or dispute something to see if it's verifiable in your report, bureaus will say, hey, this is verified, this is like a legit thing on your credit report. But if you write a letter, for example, to like the Indiana courthouse, they're going to say, no, we didn't report this to the bureaus at all, which will then be proof as well to be able to get the bankruptcy off your report. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
No problem. And so yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
thanks, John.
Thanks, John.